guys, welcome back to my channel. So last week, Vogue posted an article with Mr. Harry Styles in it, and it kind of blew up the internet. The article was pretty much just an interview of Harry Styles, but there were some photos in there that kind of triggered the right, triggered all the conservatives, triggered all the gender is biological, gender is the same as sex, all those people. For today's video, I'm gonna be reacting to Mr. Ben Shapiro's video on Harry Styles. It's honestly so funny to me how upset that everybody is over, you know, this guy literally just wearing a dress. Like, it's a piece of fabric. Calm down. Like, it's not that deep. I post videos every Monday and Thursday here on my channel, so if you guys are not yet subscribed, make sure that you do that right now. Go ahead. I'll wait for you. Are you done? Thank you very much. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter to keep us up to date with me as possible. And with no further ado, let's get right into today's video. I'm thinking I'm gonna move over to the side again because that was kind of fun, right? When you guys could see my facial expressions while I reacted, right? Maybe? Let me know if you guys like it this way or like me cutting back and forth better. I don't know what you guys prefer, so just let me know. So the video that we're gonna be watching is titled, "Here's Why Candace Owens and I Trended on Twitter Yesterday." And yeah, let's get into it.
What we are seeing with the Vogue article is not just an attempt to be transgressive, obviously. It's an attempt to redefine masculinity itself. I mean, this is overt in the article. I'm not making it up. I already read you the segments from the Vogue magazine article.
I read the article. Of course, you know, your girl can't just make a video without actually reading the actual article, unlike some of these other people. He's making it seem like this article is aggressively trying to redefine what masculinity is. I'm gonna read you a little quote from the article that like kind of depicts what they're actually trying to do. So when they talk about Styles and his, you know, outfit decisions, his choices, stuff like that, he says, "Clothes are there to have fun and experiment and play with. What's really exciting is that all these lines are just kind of crumbling away. When you take away there's clothes for men and there's clothes for women, once you remove any barriers, obviously you open up the arena in which you can play." That's what he's trying to do. It's not trying to be like men and women don't exist, blah, blah, blah. He's just trying to like say that you can wear whatever you want. That's literally it. He's not trying to, you know, do some serious deconstruction of gender, which we can get into if you want. Like, I'm perfectly fine with all that, but that's not even what he's doing. He's literally just saying, you can just wear what you want. Like, I like dresses, so I decided to wear a dress. That's it. Calm down.
I'm not sure what exactly is controversial about this, that masculinity is a good and important thing when channeled properly. It requires men to defend family. It requires men to provide. It requires men to channel their aggressive instincts towards defense of values and civilization. It requires assertiveness.
Okay, hold on. First of all, I don't know what clothing has to do with any of the abilities to defend your family, to be assertive, any of that kind of stuff. I don't know how those are related, but anyways, he's saying that masculinity is good because it requires men to provide for their families and to defend their families. Mr. Shapiro, can I break something to you? Women do not need you to provide anything. I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly capable of doing it on my own. You're saying that you need to defend the family. From what, bitch? From what? You think a coyote's gonna come in and like rip apart our family in the 21st fucking century? No.
The left fully acknowledges the qualities of masculinity and femininity, right? Which is why they suggest that there are a wide variety of genders, because they suggest that a man can be very feminine and this actually makes him a woman, right? So they agree that this means that there is such a thing as masculinity and femininity. They then just suggest...
We do agree that, you know, masculinity and femininity are real concepts, obviously. What I don't agree with is the assumption that when men display any type of femininity, that makes them a woman. I think that's kind of just like him trying to throw a jab at trans people, like, oh, well, men think that they're so feminine that they're just women. Just because a man is a little bit more feminine or his gender expression is a little bit more feminine does not mean he's a woman, does not mean that he's not anything but a cisgender man that likes feminine things. Also, throughout this whole entire video, he's saying like, oh, they're saying that men should act like women and men ought to act like women. They ought to be more feminine, blah, blah, blah. No, we're not. We're not saying that men should do anything. We're saying that, well, I mean, I guess we are. We're saying that men should do what makes them comfortable and do what makes them happy. We're not saying that you have to wear dresses. We're not saying that you have to be feminine. But if you like dresses, we're saying that you shouldn't be afraid to wear a dress. That's it. It's pretty simple.
In the same way that if you said that women ought to act like men, it's funny, if you say that women ought to act more like men, this is considered sexist because it actually is sexist. But if you say that men ought to act more like women, this is considered progressive and forward thinking. The attempt to feminize men is ongoing on the left.
Nobody's saying that they should act a certain way or that they ought to act a certain way. That's not at all what we're saying. And yes, that would be very problematic if one were to say that men should act like women or women should act like men. Yes, that would be problematic. Yes, we agree. We're saying that men should be able to wear whatever they want. That's it. We're not saying that they have to wear dresses. We're not saying that they have to be more feminine. We're saying that if they like feminine things or if they want to wear feminine clothing, then let them. If you're a cisgender man and you want to exhibit all of the stereotypically masculine traits, good for you. You do that. You be the manliest man that you want to be. But if you want to be feminine, that's fine too. You do you. Whatever you want to do is what you should do. That's all we're saying.
Masculinity and femininity are categories. They exist. Right? Some behavior is more masculine, like punching people in the face. Some behavior is more feminine, like wearing floofy dresses. Right? There are many different forms of masculinity and femininity.
Again, masculinity and femininity exist. Good job, bitch. But then he goes on to say that things like violence, things like punching people in the face, is masculine.
The most important form of femininity is bearing and rearing children. Okay, that is something that is endemic biologically to female mammals of all species, is bearing and rearing their young, right? And it is endemic for men and males of all mammalian species to be more aggressive, right? These are just biological realities. To pretend that they are social constructs entirely is completely idiotic and anti-scientific and anti-evidentiary.
Of course you brought up the whole reproduction argument. Of course you brought up the essential factor of being feminine is the ability to reproduce. In this video, he admits that some men are much more feminine and some women are much more masculine. He admits that femininity isn't exclusive to cis females or even women at all. But then a breath later says the root of femininity is the ability to reproduce or the ability to bear children. And then again, he brings up the whole, the most important part of being a masculine man is the ability to defend your family and protect your family and all this stuff. Like, from what? Like, this just does not apply in the modern day. Like, you're not hunting for food. You're not protecting the family from coyotes outside. Like, this is just not real. Nobody is saying that there are not physiological differences between a male and a female. We're just saying that these differences should not impact or restrict what we can wear, how we can act, how we live our lives.
Outward indicators of masculinity and femininity exist in nearly every human culture, right? We train little boys to be masculine and we train little girls to be more feminine. We try to breed out of them the toxicity of masculinity or the toxicity of femininity. We try to use civilization to civilize children, but boys are boys and girls are girls, right? And these are important things. Boys ought to be allowed to act like boys. Girls ought to be allowed to act like girls.
I'm going to start out by just saying I agree because, might as well, try to find some common ground. It's hard, but might as well try. If young boys want to act in a stereotypically boy way, then they should by all means be allowed to do that. All we are saying is that you should not restrict what children can do or wear or what people can do or wear just because of their gender. Like, it's clothes. There's no biological underpinning in clothes. There's no it's not that deep. It's just not that deep. What I think that we should do is, first of all, not train children. They are not your soldiers. They are human beings. Maybe just introduce them to both of the concepts, show them what's out there, and then let them choose what feels right for them. You said it yourself, Mr. Ben Shapiro. Some men are much more feminine and some women are much more masculine. And so if we force these rigid stereotypes and these rigid rules on children, you're just going to make them upset. You're just going to make them uncomfortable and you're just going to make them resent you as a parent.
Boys are taught to be more masculine in virtually every human culture because the role of men is not, in fact, always the same as the role of women. There can be crossover. Men and women can do very many of the same jobs. But to suggest that men and women are identical and they are widgets created by social conditioning is just bullcrap. It is not true. It is not scientifically true. It is a violation of actual scientific biology. That does not mean that there's not, again, men who act more like women or women who act more like men. They're not more effeminate men and more masculine women, right? All of that exists. But the fact that there is a spectrum of human biology does not mean there are not poles. There are indeed poles, right? As in P-O-L-E-S, there are poles, masculine and feminine.
I told you he said it. I told you he said it. I feel like a effing broken record saying this over and over again, but yes, male and females are biologically different. He's not only arguing that they are biologically different, he's arguing that they are so different that it creates variation between the jobs that men and women can do. I feel so bad for this poor man's wife. Like, he's married, right? Girl, I want to say this super clearly for you, Ben. Any job that a man can do, a woman is also capable of doing. Okay?
The point of the Harry Styles photo shoot is to violate those poles, right? Is to feminize masculinity. Olivia Wilde says it herself. The idea is to rethink masculinity as femininity, to feminize men, to get rid of toxic masculinity by suggesting that men should act like women.
Does your brain not hurt from all the cognitive dissonance? Like, do you not have headaches all the time? He admits that there's variation and then says that some men are more feminine, but then says that Harry Styles violated the poles of masculinity and femininity and he's ruining everything. Girl, are you the pole keeper? Like, calm down.
Right? They say that gender is actually inborn, but also socially constructed, right? They want it both ways. So they say that a man can be a woman, even though there's no biological underpinning. So gender is real, but also it's socially constructed. It's all self-contradictory.
Okay, let's break it down. Mr. Ben Shapiro needs Trans 101 real quick. So he's saying that we want it both ways. We want to say that gender is socially constructed, but also that you are born the gender that you are. That is correct. Do you want me to like break it down for you more? Because I can. I'm more than willing to do that. You don't have to be mean about it. So the word gender as a whole, gender as a concept, is very much socially constructed. It refers to the social and cultural differences between men and women. So the way that men and women talk, walk, dress, etc., they're all very different, but that's not to say that they are inscribed in biology differently. Generations of gender policing have created this almost perception of reality to gender, when in reality it is all just socially constructed. So a quick little example, men and women talk much differently. Not just the pitch of their voice, the resonance of their voice, but the way that they, structure their sentences and the inflection that they put onto the end of the sentences. Is that the right word? Inflection? Like, you know how girls, when they talk, it kind of like goes up, it sounds more like a question, and then guys are much more monotone. That difference is not inscribed in biology whatsoever, but we very much do recognize the difference between the way that a man talks and the way that a woman talks. So when Ben goes on to say that we consider gender something that you are born with, he's right, except he's actually talking about gender identity. I feel like a lot of people on the right kind of get these things confused. They kind of confuse gender as a concept, gender as a whole, with the idea of gender identity. Gender identity is one person's individual perception of their gender. And gender identity is not necessarily a social construct in the way that you pick your gender. A lot of people like to say that you just pick your gender, and that's not really how it works. You are born with your gender identity, even if your understanding of that gender identity changes over time. Like if you're born and you are assigned male, but your gender identity is female, kind of like myself. You might live as a boy for a long time, but that does not mean that your gender identity or like your true internal sense of gender is not female. Does that make sense?
Dress has been, for virtually all time and in virtually all cultures, an outward indicator, which is why the Bible explicitly says that it is against cross-dressing, for example. Okay, but in virtually every culture, men and women dress differently. This does not mean that all men dress the same and all women in all cultures dress the same. It means that in every culture, there is a distinction between how men dress and how women dress.
He says, oh, just because they wore kilts in Scotland doesn't mean that women didn't wear different types of clothing, and doesn't mean that, men and women aren't different, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure, yeah, sure, you're right, okay, whatever. But that's not the point that we're trying to make. The point that people are trying to make when they bring that up is that clothing has no biological underpinnings. The fact that men used to wear flowy skirts in different cultures proves that flowy skirts are not inherently feminine. That's all we're trying to say.
This routine is this. Look how important and magical it is that Harry Styles is wearing a dress. He's subversively undermining masculinity by bringing the effect of femininity to the masculine. And that's real masculinity, isn't a dude wearing a dress. And then people on the right are like, yes, men wearing dresses does undermine masculinity by making it more feminine. And that is a bad thing. And then,
hold on, we're gonna get to what you're about to say, hold on. What the left actually refers to as real masculinity is doing what you like or doing what makes them happy without concern for judgment from people like you, Mr. Ben Shapiro. And then he goes on to say that it's so bad if masculinity becomes a little bit more feminine. Like, are you saying that there is something inherently wrong with being feminine? Like, what's the problem?
Masculinity has very many good things and ought to be upheld.
I framed that because I knew he was about to answer it. His response to that is literally, masculinity is very good and needs to be upheld. Okay, motherfucking Donald Trump, very good. It's very good. And he's saying that we're taking away what it means to be masculine. Nobody's taking away anything. We're just saying that you can wear other stuff too. But also, like, what are you referring to as the very good aspects of masculinity? Because, like, the only aspects of masculinity that you've referenced so far is punching people in the face and being super assertive and aggressive. Is that what you're referring to as super good? I would disagree.
You on the left, you said that wearing a dress undermines masculinity. That is the whole point of putting people on the cover of magazines who are men wearing dresses.
Careful now, Mr. Ben Shapiro. We said that allowing men to do what makes them happy undermines the toxic aspects of masculinity. The toxic aspects that forces men to feel shame whenever they express any sort of femininity whatsoever.
It is important to inculcate in your children that boys and girls are different. And any parent who fails to inculcate in a boy that manliness is a good thing, and that responsible manliness helps build civilization.
Manliness like what? Manliness like punching people in the face? Because again, you haven't really mentioned any of the other super positive, important things of masculinity, besides defending your family and providing for your family, which you don't need to do. Anyways.
Any parent who does not teach their girls that femininity, meaning the protection of hearth and home in a different way than masculinity, is a good thing. Any person who doesn't teach their girls that is not doing their kid any favors. And they are undermining the civilizational compact between men and women that exists based on biology in virtually every human culture.
He's saying that you need to teach your girls what it means to be feminine, aka you need to inscribe what women must do for men. Are you good? Again, what does clothing have to do with this biological contract? Second of all, I didn't sign any contract. I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't know what clothing has to do with that. Like, I really don't.
And the left knows that they can't win this argument because biology cuts directly against them. Science cuts directly against them. So instead, they just confuse it. Instead, they just play these stupid semantic little games where they say that masculinity and femininity are interchangeable, that when you put out there an argument that men ought to act like women and that this is a good thing, you are doing something that undermines and tears at the fabric of not only civilization, but of families. It tears at the fabric of child rearing and child raising, and everybody with half a brain knows this.
I am not even going to respond to the end of this because fuck off. Just kidding. I feel like I've already responded to everything that he just said because he just repeats himself over and over again, trying to get to that 10-minute mark, you know? But yeah, that is pretty much the end of that video. In conclusion, Ben does not know anything about gender theory, first of all. How long is this in on my teeth? I swear to God. Second, men and women should be able to wear whatever they want. Arguing that encouraging men to dress how they like is biologically wrong, it's just hysterically misinformed. Also, finally, the left is not the ones saying how people ought to act, or how men should act, or how women should act. That's you, Mr. Shipshap. Anyways, that is gonna be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did like this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. It really helps out my channel a lot. Also, make sure to subscribe if you are not already and you would like to be, and hit the little bell so that you don't miss out when I post. And let me know down below what you thought of Harry Styles in the dress. I thought he looked kind of cute. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to go. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you on Thursday's video. Bye, guys.